Now, before we begin, I do have a favor to ask of you guys. I do have someone who came on their birthday. Randy at the back. Sorry if I'm embarrassing you. But I thought that was cool. You know, it's your birthday. You still came and decided to come to the class. So if you guys don't mind, we'll go ahead and give her a happy birthday, Randy. Yeah, cool. All right, that's all. I promise I won't do any more. Um, of course. So today we are going to be talking our drawing and curing class. Get my handy dandy little clicker out here. Cool. So before I get into it, if you guys don't know who I am, my name is Jake. I work here at EcoGro. My whole specialty is kind of the cannabis stuff here, and specifically organics, living soil, anything to do with soil, organic soil health, all that's kind of my jam. Honestly, I've talked to probably most of you guys in here, but still figured I'd mention it a little bit. Now, some cool things. If you guys ever see this little logo stamped onto anything, that is my personal brand. So it's either my personal product or something I'm directly involved in. It's kind of my stamp of approval. And number two, I'm really excited for this one. I'll talk about it later, but I have a free school community. And so the whole idea is I want to help newer people learn how to grow weed, to have access to free information and resources that's, in my opinion, unbiased as much as I can be, and just a good way to kind of get into the world without being overwhelmed. I'm going to talk about more about that at the end. If you guys think I did a really good job today, check it out. That's the only thing I ask of you. Besides that, just stay here and enjoy. A little bit of stuff we do here at EcoGrow. Obviously, you guys know about the classes. You're here today. We do the cannabis classes every second Saturday of the month. You can always check the Instagram and the website and whatnot. But on top of that, we have a lot of really cool other ones, from terrariums to aquaponics to gardens, carnivorous plants. We have some really awesome teachers. We'll get guest speakers occasionally and some people with some like pretty legit pedigrees too. So don't feel like you have to just come to the cannabis. Check out all of them. They're all really good classes. Second to that, we also host some events. So the next one's not coming up until March, unfortunately, but we do a little night market. Outside's all family friendly, food trucks, vendors, music, and then in here is all cannabis. So you're gonna have all the local breeders coming out. They're gonna have samples of stuff, sometimes clones to buy, things like that. Obviously, you guys know about the store, EcoGrow, if you're here today. It's a great place. We sell lots of cool stuff. But the biggest thing to me is that we are here to help you. So whether you buy stuff from us or not, almost don't care, but at least come and talk to us for the advice and information. We want you guys to succeed, you know? Now, what I want you guys to do today is give me feedback, whether it's good or bad. And I try to emphasize the bad because that's how I get better at doing these things, as well as class ideas. The reason we're doing drawing and curing today is because the last class I taught, we took a little vote and that's what people wanted. So if you guys, at the end, I'm going to ask you for some ideas. I'll ask you for clarifying questions and stuff too. So if there's anything that didn't click, let me know. And also, if there's other topics you're interested in or that are relevant to you, let me know. The most important thing I want you to do, ask me questions. There's no possible way I can cover everything. I try to go semi in depth without keeping it overwhelming. But if for some reason something didn't click, throw your hand up, ask me a question. I don't care. It could be on anything. There's a good chance it's something I'm going to talk about in like 2 slides. And if that's the case, I'll just tell you that. So don't feel bad about asking a question that I'm covering later. Just feel free to ask me. Okay, so what are we actually going to talk about in the class today? Pretty straightforward. It's all on drawing and curing. So we're going to talk about like what that actually is and means, why you should care. We don't want you looking like that guy with terrible weed that nobody likes. And we're going to talk about how to do it successfully. And there's a few different opinions on what that actually means. I'll go over my version of it. So to start off, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a slide early here. We're also going to talk about little tips and tricks and other stuff you can do, things I've picked up along the way. And one of the bigger ones is how to do this on a budget. You don't have to spend a ton of money to be successful at this. And I try to emphasize that to people. So we're going to have a whole little section just on how to do this cheaply if you don't have any resources, because every single person should be able to leave here today knowing how to dry and cure successfully. I use the word successfully, not perfectly. We're in Arizona. It's going to be really hard to do things perfectly here. That being said, I'll show you how I do stuff, how we can get closest to that, and how to go home with a successful, enjoyable harvest. Okay, so starting off, what does actually drying mean? That's pretty simple, right? Most people are going to know this one. Drying, you're taking water out of something, right? So the big thing is when you first cut your cannabis down, it's full of water. We have to dry that. It should not be consumed fresh off of the plant. Don't do that. It sucks. I encourage you to try it one day just for the sake of it, but it sucks. Kind of think of it like firewood, right? If you're trying to light stuff that's wet, it doesn't really work very well. It's the same thing with your cannabis, just like it is anything else. Part of that is why it personally hurts me when I hear stories of people jumping over a fence and stealing a plant and then running off with it, because I know they're not going home and drying it and curing it and doing things properly. No, they cut down a beautiful weed plant and it's going to go to waste because they thought they could get something out of it. This is why we dry and cure. Now, on the bright side, honestly, I almost never hear stories like that anymore after legalization, unless you live next to a high school. That's the one time they don't have access to stuff and they don't know, right? And so that's where I've seen stuff happen, but still very rare. Don't worry too much. Now, what most people don't know is what's actually going on when we're drying, what's happening. So obviously our water is leaving. That's the big one. But there's more to it than just water. So there's tons of little unwanted compounds in there that are also leaving with it. And so this is stuff like chlorophyll. That's the pigment that makes your plants green, starches and sugars and all kinds of different stuff. So not only are we getting the water out, but we're getting the quote unquote bad stuff that we don't want to consume out as well. Now, it's kind of a balance between getting the bad stuff out and maintaining and preserving the good stuff, which is what we do want. In this case, we're going to talk about THC, terpenes, all the cannabinoids in your plant. All of that stuff we're trying to maintain and keep and hold on to. And again, bad stuff getting thrown out. Now, the big one everyone talks about is THC and terpenes. There are hundreds of compounds in this plant. So these are the main ones we talk about. They're very important. But when you do things correctly, you're maintaining all of those compounds in there. We're not just selecting for THC and terpenes, even though those are the big ones. If you guys don't know what terpenes are, it's a category of compounds. Essentially, they help with your smell, your flavor, and honestly, they'll influence the effects a little bit too. And so that's the whole thing we're trying to hold on to. You don't want to grow this beautiful, awesome plant just to ruin it because you don't know what you're doing on the dry stage. Okay, so what is curing, right? Drying, pretty straightforward. We understand it. What is curing? It's a pretty similar thing, but it is a much more controlled, slow process. And so the idea is that we're trying to slowly dry and get rid of the last little residual compounds in there. And so you kind of should think of it like wine, right? Most of us have heard of like old aged wine fetching for ridiculous prices. It's kind of the same idea with cannabis, although not the same timeline, right? I don't think weed gets better after 50 years. Talk to a guy who does, honestly. So there's some takes out there. But you can extend that lifespan pretty long. And I do think some cured cannabis is a lot better than like freshly dried or harvested cannabis. We'll talk about that a little bit. Now, it's important to know this should be done in a controlled environment. Throwing it in a Ziploc and putting it on your kitchen table is not curing. You're just drying out your buds and losing everything that we want. So don't do that, okay? We will talk about actually how to do this just a little bit later on. And then again, just a little science behind it, very similar to the drying, right? Not only do we have that moisture leaving, but there's a lot of compounds breaking down. And this is physically, this is biologically, and this is chemically. So when we see it, we just see our jars of weed sitting there, but there's constantly things going on in the background that we just don't visually notice. So again, same compounds like I mentioned. The idea with curing too, we're trying to stabilize a lot of those terpenes. A lot of those compounds that we do want are kind of volatile. They can be easily destroyed. And so a good drying and curing makes those a little bit hardier, and we're just getting them in the right environment to have all of these things happen on their own. You're not going to be influencing things. But really, I have this whole slide just to say, like, it's not just water leading. There is other stuff going on. So try to respect the process a little bit. Water is the big one. Don't get me wrong. There's all kinds of stuff happening. Okay, so why should you actually care about this, right? And the easiest way to show people this is like to try it yourself, frankly. You guys will notice different quality levels at different stages, and I'm going to talk about that later on because I think it's super important, the best way to learn. But really, why we care is because if you don't do it right, it sucks. Your product is just not as good as it would have been. It's going to be first and foremost, when you pop that jar open, you're going to give it a sniff, you're super excited. and you're just going to get this like hay smell or plant matter kind of smell. And that's super disappointing. If you're noticing that, it means you got to go back. You still have some work to do, or you might have messed stuff up. Again, we'll talk about how to do it properly. On top of that, it's going to taste really, really bad. It's going to be super harsh. It's going to not burn right. Just like we mentioned, burning wet stuff doesn't work out very well. And overall, it's going to be a lower quality product that is less enjoyable. I say it affects your effects of cannabis even. There's a little controversy there, but overall, it's a better experience. So why wouldn't you want that? The biggest thing that hurts me in my heart is when I see people grow these amazing plants and then they mess up the dry and cure. And it's like, dude, even if you enjoy it afterwards, which you probably will, it's a great plant. It is not what it could have been. And so my whole goal is for you guys to grow the best that you can, not just that our environment allows. Okay, so on the opposite end of that, your well cured, your well dried weed, it is supposed to taste good. This is a really hard thing to teach newer consumers, I guess, until they've had something that is actually like a quality product. But when you're consuming, if you're smoking something, you're not supposed to just have like crappy smoke taste, right? It's not just ash taste. There should be all kinds of other stuff going on there. And so when you do this drying and curing process correctly, that kind of opens up the door to a lot of those possibilities. I mean, I've had weed that tastes like blueberries and ice cream and all kinds of stuff. And it sounds crazy unless you've had it, but it is totally possible. So again, preserving quality, it lets you store it a lot longer. And you'll get into some really, really unique flavors, smells, effects, all kinds of things. And so to me, this is one of the most exciting parts of growing. You grew this awesome plant, so let's enjoy it now. Let's see all the differences between the different varieties and strains and growing styles and everything like that. So overall, it's just a better time. Like I said, you should try it yourself. This is the easiest way to determine if curing actually matters to you or not, is to try it at different stages. So the one I didn't put on here is as soon as you chop it, try it. Honestly, I think you should do that once because you're going to be super excited. Your plant's going to smell awesome. You're going to try it and you're going to be really disappointed. And it's like, well, why did I do all this, right? Do it anyways. Try it, feel that, learn from it, go on to the next one. I'll do it again. I almost always steal a nug halfway through drying. It's not ideal, but I want to try it. And if it's a really good plant, it'll still be good. But it gives you a little bit of context for what it'll be like as it changes in the next month or two or however long. Uh, do it again once you finish drying. At that point, I honestly would say it's pretty good. If you do the dry properly and how we talk about, it does a little bit of curing at the same time. So you are good to consume at this point. You could even feel pretty good giving that away to people and having it as a representation of yourself. But right again, as you're curing, I think you'll notice some differences. If you're doing things right, you'll notice some different flavors, some different effects, a little smoother. And then try it again. I say finished cure. That's a strong statement. Again, we'll talk about how long it takes. But try it once it's been curing for a long time. You'll notice some differences again. Okay, quiz time. Make sure you guys paying attention. I do have some stuff to give away. So last time we had edibles. I don't have those this time, but I do have some seeds. Unfortunately, they're mystery seeds. We lost the labels to them. But there's some pretty good ones actually. This was like a pretty legitimate breeder. He had some cool stuff in here. I want to say they're feminized. Don't quote me on that if you guys find some males, you know what I mean? But I believe they are. So first question. This one, I'm not giving prizes away because you guys should all be able to answer this. Can you consume freshly harvested cannabis? I heard a yes. What would you say? No. Big nose. That's okay. I'm sorry, not to put you on the spot. But you know what? You got me. That's a good on the technical. You get a pack for that. That's a fair one. There you go. You guys ready? Oh, I'm sorry. And let me know if they break or anything. I'll be a little more careful. I guess they're loose, huh? Um, you can. That's true. I honestly didn't even think of that. You can, but you shouldn't, right? Yeah. So no, dry your cannabis first, right? It's just gonna be better. That's the important one. At least dry it. We can argue on the curing, but dry it properly, you'll do better. Did that end up okay, guys? Okay, I'm sorry about that. I guess I'll hand them out. Huh? That's a little easier. Okay, question number two. And on this one, I'm gonna accept raised hands. I'll call on people. There's a lot of different answers that are correct here. So why should you dry and cure your weed properly? Beautiful answer. Perfectly acceptable. You mind handing that back to him there? I learned my lesson. And I'll take another one from you there. Absolutely. Great answer on there. That's a perfect one. maximizing your potential on there, right? 100%. Honestly, my answer, if you don't, it sucks. So I don't want your weed to suck. Honestly, that's the reason we do this. If you don't, it's going to look like this and it's going to taste like that. And that sucks. It doesn't have to be that way. This is a lot of people's experience with weed, and I hate that. It doesn't have to. Okay. So now we know why, we know what we're doing. How do you actually do that? And again, it's pretty easy. Question from you. Correct. This wasn't a quiz, but correct if it was. Yes. Um, so he beat me to the punchline there. But yes, low and slow is like the whole idea. And so if you guys are coming for the presentation, honestly, the next couple slides is like most of what we're talking about here. Um, it is all about your environment. So it sounds scary. It's like, what do I do? How do I get into this? As long as you set up your environment correctly, you literally don't have to do anything. Just sit back and wait. Now, I'm going to give you some targets. In Arizona, you are not hitting these numbers. So do not stress yourself over it. It's just a useful frame and reference to remember. 60-60 is kind of the standard that most people talk about. And so what that means is 60 degrees temperature Fahrenheit, 60% humidity. It's Arizona. We're not hitting 60 degrees here. And if we are, you're spending a fortune to cool that room down to 60 degrees. So really, focus on what you can control. The one that's the most important is going to be your humidity. I do think you should try to get that as close to 60% as possible. For temperature, if you can do room temp, guys, that's good. Honestly, a lot of people come to me and they freak out. They're like, Jake, oh my God, I think everything's ruined. My temperature is 71. And it's like, dude, you will be fine. I promise you, don't worry about it. Now, your humidity, that again, that one does matter a little more. Do everything you can to get that up to 60. And we'll talk about some ways to actually do that. But the whole idea is that you want to go low and slow on the dry. So just like we said, we want to preserve those compounds that we grew. That's the whole reason we grow these plants is for those compounds. So the idea is that in this environment, you're able to protect those sensitive compounds, but it is a good enough environment to still let some of that water out. And so low and slow is the idea. You're letting those compounds out that we don't want, and we're keeping the stuff that we do. Now, it's pretty simple. You really just need to hang your plant in the dark. Upside down is easiest, just physically, but really just hang it in the dark. And you want to do it in a enclosed area, ideally, somewhere that you can kind of control with some air circulation. Excuse, we've got the pack next door today. And so I'll show you guys kind of an example of what that looks like. But really, your whole goal is to have an environment with air moving that's as close to this number as you can get. That's it. That's the whole magic of drying. And it's crazy next door, but if it gets too crazy, I'll go pop over or something. But thank you guys for bearing with me. This is a shared space, if you couldn't tell, so we kind of roll with it sometimes. So here's a great example of how you should dry, right? So this is a cool little tent setup we have going on. This is not my picture, but it's pretty dang close to what I do. And I'll tell you guys my method a little bit later here. But everything is lined up, right? So they are in a tent. You have your plants in the dark, upside down, hanging. Awesome. Is your temperature roughly at room temp? I mean, it's close. 76 is a tiny bit higher than I would like, but don't stress too much. That is an acceptable range. What about their humidity? 53%. Once again, it's close. I'm not going to be mad at you if you guys are in this range. I would like ever so slightly higher, but that's okay. We just want it to be good enough to preserve and to actually get the products that we want. Same thing with the airflow. They have these fans down in the bottom. Perfect. That keeps your air moving around. You're good. So this is a great example of a setup. And all this is a little grow tent. It's probably the same tent that he grew the plants in, or she, I don't know. But you chop them, you hang them upside down, and you get as close as you can to 60-60. What I do personally is pretty much this. I have a little 2x4 tent that I grow my plant, or that I dry and cure my plants in. I hang them upside down in the dark. I have one fan in the bottom, and I just point it in the corner. You don't really want the airflow blowing directly on the plants. You just want that air in the room moving around. I actually think 2 fans is a little overkill. I would do just 1, but again, we're really splitting hairs here. Question at the back? It is. The next thing I was going to mention is this nice little humidifier right here. I highly recommend getting one that has a humidistat. All that means is you can set the humidity you want it to turn on at. And so what I do personally, I use the tent, I have a fan, I put a humidifier in there and I set it to kick on at 55%. And then I put a dehumidifier in there to kick on at 65%. And so if you have the both of those in there, I don't do a thing. I put my plants in there, I seal it up, and I forget about it. Those two kind of keep my environment exactly where I want. My temp is pretty good. My humidity is always between 55 and 65. It's done. You're good. Automatic curing, leave it in there. Just make sure your stuff doesn't run out of water or your dehumidifier fills up and you're fine. Um, you don't have to. Um, you don't have to, but it is a safer option. So if you have the budget for it, I recommend it just because it's a fail safe. Now, to be honest, in my setup, probably 90% of the time, the dehumidifier doesn't even kick on. And if it does, it's for a very short period. I didn't go into specifics. I thought about putting a slide here, so I'm glad you asked the question. Thank you. But if you say, let's say you have this tent and you filled it with, 6 more plants, you have a lot of moisture in there, a lot of plant matter. That's going to be letting out tons of water. That's a case where I would say, yeah, you're going to want the dehumidifier. But if you have a couple plants in there, just the moisture coming off is probably going to keep them right where you want it. And that's true with the humidifier as well. There is moisture coming off of these plants. So you don't have to worry about just dumping in tons and tons and tons of water. Generally speaking, if you kind of balance the size of your environment to the amount of plants you have in there, it gets pretty close to those numbers we want anyway. I saw you guys had a question. Totally. So the whole idea is to preserve those compounds we want. If you dry your plants too quickly, you get that water out of there very fast, but you lose some of those precious compounds that we grow and that we're after. And so the idea with having that moisture in there is it slows this process down to a stage that's a little more stable and a little more controllable. But that's a great question. Okay, sounds good enough. You guys get the 60/60 question from you. Yeah, that's great. You don't want it super hard. Like you don't want to see your plants blowing around in the wind. That's probably a little bit much. You just want to make sure you have airflow in there. So a fan on low is probably perfect. Uh, don't worry too much, honestly. As long as you have air moving, you're good. I've done them on high, I've done them on low. It kind of depends. But good question. Good question. Another question from you at the back. Mhm. Great. You can. On the safe side, I'd like to have another fan just to move it more. But if you don't have one, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And I have a budget setup kind of example in here later on, and that's going to cover a good chunk of that too. But that's perfect. You're doing great. Okay. Totally. Thank you. That's a good point. Yep. Sure. Beautiful question. So he was asking, does it help if you chop all the branches down into individual pieces or just keep it together? I meant to put in the slide for that again, so thank you. There's different opinions, and it depends on how big your plant is. Generally speaking, I prefer to chop the whole plant and hang the whole plant. And the reason for that is it gives you the most plant matter and it retains the most moisture. And so I think it helps slow down that drying process a little bit more. And so it keeps things, again, more controlled. Now, that being said, if you have a big 15-foot tall plant, it's like that's not happening. You're not getting that whole thing in there. And so there are absolutely cases where I'll go and I'll chop branches. And so we'll say maybe I'll take, a couple big ones there, or I'll individually select them all out. That's completely fine. If you guys have like another example, if you have a ton of plant matter in a pretty small place, it's probably better to do that. That being said, for most people, most home grow situations, whole plant is what I prefer. From me a friend. Yeah, that's totally fine. You can do that too. I should ask. She asked if you can chop the plants into different sections and branches and whatnot. Totally fine. Totally fine. Really, we're just after the buds. So whatever you do with the other stuff is kind of up to you. I'd like to keep them on there for moisture sake and keeping that process slow, but you can totally play around with stuff. And I'll get your question first, sir. Another good question. I keep meaning to put all these things on. You guys are good though. I don't. So this is like wet trim versus dry trim kind of argument. I personally leave all of the plant matter on my plant when I chop it. Every once in a great while, I'll take some extra stuff off again if I'm running out of space or I know I have really big plants, but I generally try to keep my leaves on there. A lot of people prefer a wet trim, and the biggest argument I've seen for that is time savings. It seems like you can trim a little quicker when it's wet after versus when it's dry for whatever reason. Mm, I like the moisture though. You had a question too? Hmm. Yeah. So that's a great question too. So basically, she was saying she has a plant that she grew for her first time. Half of it's ready, half of it isn't, or appears to be catching up still. That's normal. Your plant will not finish completely 100% at the same time. Now, generally speaking, it's close enough that we kind of select a harvest that's good enough for all of them. But harvesting is in a window. There's not one particular day you need to chop them. There's a range of time that you can cut them within. Now, what some people will do is rather than cut the whole plant, they'll cut the half that looks ready. They'll dry that half and then they throw the other half in later. What I will mention, if you do end up splitting your plants like that and putting more material in later, it doesn't necessarily reset the dry on the first one, but we're adding so much moisture again that I notice it'll take a little longer. So if I cut the first half, it's in there for let's say a week, and I throw that new one in, it might take a few extra more days than it would have if I didn't. Totally fine. Just plan ahead for it. That's a great question too. And I didn't talk about harvesting in this presentation, but at the end, I'm going to give you a resource that goes over all the harvesting stuff. Yeah, and that's another good, pretty straightforward-ish. Very scary the first time, honestly, but yeah, for sure, for sure. Have a close, trusted person try it, you know? There you go. Yeah, there you go. But great questions, great questions. Also things I want to talk about, I just forget, you know. Cool. So what I didn't talk about is how long you drive for. Honestly, it depends. Tough answer, but it depends. I aim for about 2 weeks on the drying process. Honestly, I'll go longer than that sometimes. What's important to note is that if you set up your environment correctly, you can leave it in there. It's not a rush to get it out. So whether you do it in 2 weeks or you decide to leave them in for an extra week and then take them out, that's totally fine. I'm a little ashamed to say I have left plants hanging for like 3, 4 months before. It's less than ideal, don't get me wrong, but they were still very, very nice, very quality that I'm after. So now if you don't set up this environment right and you just leave your plants out, they're going to suck. And that sucks. So don't have that happen. So I aim for about 2 weeks. What we're really looking for is a branch snap. This is kind of the old school testing method. Meant to bring a branch in today for this too, but I forgot. But what we're going in, you're going to go in and snap one of the larger branches and just give it a little bend. If you get a very distinctive crunch, and you'll know it when you feel it, I know that's information, but you'll understand when you're there. If you get that distinctive crunch and snap of it, you're probably right where we want to be at. Now, if you go in there and you bend that big branch and it just has bend and give to it still, leave it in there a little longer, you probably have some time to go. It's not like a foolproof method, but it's the way that I do it still. And again, as long as you set your environment up right, you guys will be okay. You can leave them in there. It's not a rush to get to them. It's important to note the outside of your flowers will get pretty dry at this point. It's almost scary because you're like, oh, dang it, I waited for the snap and now they're too crispy. There is still going to be some moisture on the inside of the buds, and that's going to slowly evacuate out. That's a large part of what's happening when we're curing. So don't freak out. The outsides will get a little bit crispy. Once you throw them into a storage container, generally speaking, that will level out a little bit, and you'll feel that nice kind of soft buds that we're after again. You can always fix this too. If you go too dry, you can throw humidity packs and stuff. I'll talk about that later. There's all kinds of other ways people use to check and see when they're ready. I don't really do any of these, but I'll mention them at least. People will weigh their plants when they're wet and then when they're dry. And once you have a certain percentage of weight loss, they say that's ready and good. That's an okay method. It's kind of a pain, honestly. I don't like weighing everything a bunch, but that's a good one. I've seen people use wood moisture meters, and you can kind of get the moisture content of your plant. That's a pretty cool one, but once again, not one I do. And a million other methods. I won't go into all of them because this works pretty well. And again, I really just want you guys to focus on setting up that environment, right? And you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Any questions on the dry time? That sounds good. Cool. Okay. So what if I'm broke? What if I don't have money? What if I'm doing this on a budget? I don't have the equipment, all of that. I've been there. I will be there at some point in the future, I'm sure. That's perfect. So there's a ton of ways to do things. This is where you get creative, you guys. Use what you have. You don't have to have a perfect tent, a perfect humidifier, a perfect dehumidifier. I mean, if you have the money, buy that stuff eventually. It is worth it, honestly, especially on the dry. But first handful of rounds, or it's tight this week, whatever it is, use what you have, guys. If you have a spare tent, that's like the gold standard. But spare room, that's okay. A spare closet, a spare bathroom, a spare wardrobe. If you have a big dresser with clothes and stuff, take the clothes out. It's your weed house for a little while now. Big boxes. I love this picture because it's kind of a blend of high tech and low tech, right? Obviously, they don't have the tent, but they have a big wardrobe box. That's perfect. That's great. You just need a space that's a little big and you can control a little bit. On top of that, they go the extra mile. So they have some holes cut in for like the humidifier. I'm sure there's a fan in there and everything you would need. So get creative with it. You don't have to have all the perfect equipment, and you definitely don't have to go buy a $5,000 machine that does it for you. A lot of that is just environmental controls, and they put it in a pretty package for you. Some really low tech ways of adding humidity. This is one of the more challenging ones. I do think your first purchase should just be a humidifier with a humidistat. Honestly, if you got to go through a round or two, I get it, but buy one eventually. It is worth it. But some cheap ways to do it: bowls of water. Throw them in there, they evaporate. It's adding some moisture in there. I've seen people use damp towels. If you go in, the same thing, it's more surface area. Again, moisture coming off. If you have more plants in there, throw them in. That's more moisture. If it's a smaller space, that's another thing. There's less area for that to go. AJ did just bring us some coupons too. Thank you, AJ. Say hi. Everybody say thank you, AJ. Yeah. So on here, I actually don't even know what the coupon is. So let's see. You guys are going to get 20% off drying and curing supplies. So anything that's semi-relevant today, ask them at the desk. There's stuff you could probably push it a little bit on too, honestly. But that's as a thank you for coming. We appreciate you. And a way to bribe you to come in here and hopefully go to the store or something. Um, yeah, so all kinds of ways you can do this low tech if you need to. The tools help, don't get me wrong, but you don't have to have them. And a lot of them are just marketing kind of gimmicks, especially if it's super expensive. I did have a question in the back. Mhm. That's ideal. Yes. We really want to put our plants in the dark because the sunlight can mess up some of those compounds we're after. Um, yes. Yes, you can get away with it, but if you can, make it dark. Make it dark. If they're, oh, uh-oh. Sorry, I pushed a button I wasn't supposed to. Um, Ideally, if you have to, put trash bags on the windows and, you can get a little crazy with it. But darkness is good. I do recommend that. Yeah, totally. Once again, meant to make a whole slide on this. Um, So yes and no. So her question for the folks on video: plants very fragrant while growing right now. Is it going to continue to be fragrant drying it? Yes and no. So or more. You will have some smell come off of it. Straight up, it's going to happen. Now, if you have the tent, they sell little carbon filters, and that's going to remove all the smell. It's crazy. But when you first put them in there, when you cut them off the plant, they are going to be raging, like smells going everywhere. When you put them in that dry tent, you're going to have some smell, but you come back the next day, a couple days later, and it's going to kind of go away. You're going to just smell like a plant matter smell, and you're going to be really scared the first time because it's like, dude, it smelled great outside. Like, what did I do? I messed it up already. That is normal. When we smell the weed smell, what we're actually smelling is those terpenes. And so they're off gassing and they're being destroyed. And so we're smelling that. So when that smell goes away, those terpenes are staying intact. So oftentimes you open that jar and you're like, dude, there's no smell. Give it a little shake and you'll have all that smell come back out. So during the drying process, it's going to kind of go away. It's still going to stink, but it's like plant matter. And then it's going to kind of come back towards the end. If you go in there and you kind of shake the plant or you bump it or you agitate it or break one, that smell will come flooding out again. So indoors in a house, it is a little stinky. It is a little stinky. Mhm. No, no. Yeah, yeah. As a teacher, don't be worried. It's not gonna like stick to your clothes. Nothing like that. Nothing like that. Oh, that's funny. Totally. You yourself will not smell the room it's in. That's gonna stink a little bit, but You'll be fine. That's funny. Yeah, totally, totally, totally. You'll be all right. Um, what I don't want to see you guys do is this. If I see you cut your plants and just put them outside and hang them, I'm gonna be upset with you. All right. At least put a little effort into it. And these freaking things. So the drying racks, I don't necessarily hate. They're fine. It's just a tool to hold stuff. The problem is oftentimes they sell them to you like that is the drying process. Like, oh, just put it in the rack and you're good. And it's like, yeah, you'll have your moisture come out, but so will everything else. It's gonna suck. So if I see you guys outside with your weed, I'm going to be mad at you and I'm going to say something. If you guys try indoors, that's fine. That's good enough for me. I always laugh a little bit too because it shows these people standing around all happy and the rest. It's like, no, don't do that. That's my little PSA for the minute. That's all. Okay. Good. Okay. So drying, cool. Everyone feels decent on that. We'll do a little wrap up at the end too. Now, how do you actually cure? Pretty similar to drying. Long, slow process. Unfortunately, the best things do take some time. When it comes to curing, remember the goal is to get rid of that leftover moisture as well as break down the last of those unwanted compounds that we don't want to consume. Now, the point of curing is it helps preserve the quality and it also makes stable storage environment. So as long as you guys are doing things correctly, you can store your weed for a very long time, months and months, up to a year or more, very easily. I've seen weed that was over a year or two old and still was fantastic. I've seen weed that's a week old and is terrible. So store it correctly. Again, it's all about the environment. I'll kind of show you guys. This one's a little bit easier. You don't have to do as much. And there's two main methods: jars and grove bags or Keurig bags. I didn't bring a jar today, but this is the grove bag. I'll just tell it about you, or I'll show it off and I'll tell it to you in just a slide or two here. They work really well, honestly. Okay, so first method is your old school jar method. This is kind of your traditional method, and it works great. I have no problem with this. I love my jars. The idea is that you finish drying your plant. If you guys dried it like we talked about, honestly, you're probably pretty close to where you want. If you didn't, then curing matters a lot more. So when you first throw it into your jars, you'll be excited. You come back the next day, you open it, it's going to smell a little off. You might have a little bit of that hay smell still. And that is the point of curing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to burp our jars. And essentially that means you take the lids off, you let some air out, you let some fresh air in. That's the whole idea. Now, the first week after harvest, you want to do this maybe twice a day. That number is very variable, right? So play around with it, but open them up, let some air in and out. And this is slowly letting that excess moisture leave and a little bit of new air come in. This is a very slow and controlled process. Open them, leave them out for 5, 15 minutes, something like that. Close them back up, call it good. Now, this is a great method, but it's a little bit annoying, especially if you have a lot of jars. It's kind of a pain, but it does work really well still. And I still use my jars. Second to that, you have the Grove bags or like curing bags. Grove's the only one I've used. But these are a little mylar bag and they have essentially like a permeable mesh where they let humidity in and out. And so it maintains at about 60%. These things work really well. I did not want to like them, especially like, Mylars and whatever. They work great. They're really inexpensive. It's like a couple bucks for some big ones. You throw them in there and just forget about it. You seal them up, throw them in the closet, come back later, and it's a very different product than when you first put them in. So I call this kind of like set and forget curing. They do work really well. And they have a really good reputation in the industry, and they're cheap enough that I think most people should use them. But jars are great, not an issue. Totally, totally. Um, So part of that too is if you get your weed way too dry, they're not gonna necessarily magically bring the moisture back unless there's some in there. There's some on the inside, it'll equalize. Now you can throw in a leaf. If you have a spare fan leaf or something, you can throw it in and that helps a lot. Or you can use little humidity packs. The Bovitas today, I found out, do you know it's actually Bovita is how you pronounce it? I hate that. I'm never gonna call it that, but that is the name of it, I guess. But Bovita packs, you guys have probably seen them before if you've been around cannabis stuff. They're just little humidity packs. So if it gets way too dry, what you can do, throw them into a Grove bag, throw in a little humidity pack and seal it up, and you're good to go again. I would prefer to not let it get too dry, but this will help quite a bit. But yeah, these bags are great, honestly. They do work well. Question from you. Totally. I don't have any slides on harvesting. Oh, good. Cool, they look beautiful. Show me the pictures after class and I'll tell you what my opinion is. I don't have any slides in here on harvesting, but I will show you a resource that's going to say how to do it. As a quick little spiel, basically we want to check the trichomes, all the little crystals on the plant. You want to use a lens to look at them. They're going to change color from clear to cloudy and then finally amber. We want to harvest when pretty much all of them are cloudy, maybe a few amber. I like maybe 10% amber, and that's chop time, ready to go. Lens is the best way to look at it, frankly, but you can also look at different signs throughout the plant and kind of get a rough idea of how close you're getting. Question at the back from you too. Correct. Yes, depending on who you talk to, but yes, your harvest time is going to be different on a ton of different factors. Genetics, where you're growing it, how long it's been, I mean, even weather, kind of, but really genetics is the big one. So there's no set date, like, oh, 8 weeks, cut it down. That's kind of the standard commercially, but that's because they have to make money. And so they just keep it on a strict timeline. As home growers, it's going to be variable. Yeah, so that's a little advanced. I didn't talk about it in this one because it's a basics class. Really, if you're checking like your water activity, that's probably the more accurate way to tell and determine where we're at. Most people don't have access to stuff like that, or it's a little step above for them. But that's a great way to do it. And so, like I talk about 60-60 in here. There's a few other methods. Some people talk about different temps and humidity ranges. This is just the tried and true, like kind of old advice that works really well and that I still use. If you're still here after class, I'll try to point you towards some resources of some cool stuff that play around with a lot of that. But yeah, moisture activity is a better metric. Okay. Let's see here. Question from you in the middle too. Mhm. Um, I wouldn't honestly. If I put them in there and they're kind of where I want them, I prefer not using the humidity packs. I've noticed I get slightly better results that way. I do like the humidity, but I use them more as a fail-safe. So if I messed up, I throw them in, or if it's super long-term storage and I'm going in and out of that jar a bunch, then I'll throw one in. But like I do use jars for long-term storage. I don't know if I think I talk about that at some point. Maybe not. Well, I use jars for long-term storage. So I cure in bags and then I throw them into jars and keep them there. Most of the jars I just keep sealed as is. The one I'm going in and out of, I throw a humidity pack in. I think that's worth it. That's another great question. Great question. It is very dry here. Okay. So how long do you cure for? There's not really a hard set rule. Honestly, it really depends on who you talk to. Now, I do everything off of the smell, which as a newer person's like, well, what does that mean? If you open it up and you get that plant matter smell, keep going. It's the best way I can describe it. Now, kind of a plant matter smell, like a hay smell. When you smell it, it's distinctive. You'll kind of understand it. It is different from the normal cannabis stinkiness, so to speak. It's more plant mattery. Again, people use hay as a description. Um, Now, what gets a little tricky, I don't know if I should even mention this, but there's kind of levels to that. So a lot of the times if I cure, I dry well, it'll smell pretty good, but kind of like hiding on the back end is like a little plant matter smell. And again, that sounds weird, but you'll smell it and be like, oh, this is great. But it's just kind of there at the end, you smell it. And so at that point, I decide I burp them another couple times and they're pretty much right where I want them and forget. When it comes to curing length, I think 1 to 6 months is kind of peak. You do not have to wait 6 months to consume your cannabis. That's crazy. As soon as it's dry, you can try it. But I do think your quality pretty greatly improves after that like month mark. After the month, you've got most of the juice out of it. I'd say you're like 90% plus of what you're going to get. But there are still some small changes that happen in those coming months. So this is why, again, I say try stuff. Mhm. Thank you. So he was asking again, how much should we fill it? All stuff I meant to talk about. So I'm gonna go back a slide. On the jars, you can fill them pretty high. I like just a little bit of airspace still. I don't know, let's say maybe 10%, if even that. I fill my jars pretty good. Now the Grove bags, these you fill about 3/4 full. So try to buy the bag according to how much you have. You're going to just kind of estimate. You want to fill it up to about yay far, and then just seal them. Now, I also forgot to mention when you seal them, you're going to have the urge to like squeeze the air out like we do in other bags. Don't do that. Leave the air in there, seal them. You want the headspace. It feels wrong, but it is the right thing to do. That's how you're supposed to do it. But fill the grove bags about 3/4 full. Jars, fill them up pretty good. Uh, I don't have a strong stance in the jar. Yeah, more airspace, it will cure quicker, it'll dry a lot quicker, stuff like that, totally, especially from your front. I used to. So he asked, "Are you using hydrometers in your jars?" I used to. I don't now. And the reason for that is again, I go off the smell. I have enough of kind of a backlog in my mind that I know what I'm after. But I do think the hydrometers are a useful tool, and it gives you a number to actually recognize what we're seeing and what we're smelling. And the hydrometer numbers you're aiming for is about like 58, 62 range again. Some people argue a percent here and there, but around then, that's a great question too. Okay. Let's see, what was I talking about? Yeah, so again, try your cannabis at different stages, but make sure you do store it right. If you go through all this hassle of drying and curing and growing the plant, and you throw it in a Ziploc on the counter, it's gonna suck. It's not gonna be what it was. At least just keep it in a jar. Pretty simple, or at the very least, keep it in a grove bag or something like that. But they'll do pretty well. So my specific method, my secret sauce on curing, I do a combination. Oh no, you guys weren't supposed to see that if you did. Um, so I do a combination of both. So I actually start off in the grove bags. Now I'm a little extra, so I dry for about 2 weeks, throw them in the grove bags for a month. Put them in there, I seal them, I throw them in the closet. I'll still steal some nugs out, but really I try to leave it alone. And then after that, I put them into jars. So the month is up, they go into jars, and then I smell it. Usually I need to burp like 3 times. And then it's right where I want it, and I seal them and I leave it alone. Over time, you'll kind of get a feel for what you like. And again, this is why I stress so heavily to try it yourself and realize what you like. What I like might be different from someone else. That's the beauty of the cannabis stuff. It's very subjective. But I think that really long cure like that, I mean, they're great. After that month in the bags, they're pretty much right where I want. But an extra burp or two is great, right? Totally, totally. And then you get to see if it's worth it. If why am I doing all this? Because if I just tell you to, it's not the same. Not the same. And it gets different. Yeah, and totally. And so this is strain dependent too. Some of the last round I just grew, I actually think it was a little better like a month or two ago. The last couple months I think it was a little declined. Not a lot, but we're getting picky. Question at the back from you? Yes. Cannabis storage in general should pretty much always be in the dark. Light will hit and oxidize things, and so it can damage it a little bit. It's not the end of the world, but it will degrade your weed quicker. So ideally, closet, bag, drawer, whatever. Yes. So CBN is kind of what happens with the sunlight is your THC converts into CBN. It's another molecule. It's generally associated with like heavy sleepy effects. And so like a lot of people are after that too. That's fine. That's fine. But generally speaking, I try to preserve it. If I want heavy weed, I grow heavy weed, but I try to keep my stuff intact. But you can play around with it. Okay. Let's see here. I think next is the quizzes. Yes. So I have more stuff to give away and I have more questions for you guys. Okay. So first off, what is the target environment for your drying tent? Right hand in the back first. Beautiful. Great answer. Thank you. And you guys mind passing that down to the back? Thank you. Thank you. So 60/60. 60 degrees, 60% humidity. Honestly, close to it is what we're after. Room temp or better is what I say, room temp or colder. But get that humidity as close as you can. That's going to be the link that matters the most for us, especially here in Arizona. Okay. Question number 2. What are the 2 main methods for curing? Are you guys' hands too? Give me just one, just one. Perfect. That'll work. And then what's the second one? Another hand up front. Beautiful. Curing, growth bags. Perfect. There you go. Okay. So yeah, jars or grove bags. It's pretty simple. Throw them in there, do things right, you'll be great. I like both of them, honestly. I'm not pushing you towards either one. So a little roundup. What did we actually learn from the class today? Honestly, try to keep things simple. Simple is best. You just need to do the simple stuff really well, and that's going to take you 90% of the way, if not more. So long, slow dry. Do it in the dark. Aim for 60% humidity above all else, and room temp or better. I'll be happy if you guys can do room temp. Ideally, get it low, but again, do what you can. Make sure there's some airflow in there. Make sure you're curing in your grove bags. I like to use jars for storage, but you can definitely do both. But I do want to really emphasize that we should get this part right. If you guys mess up the dry and cure, unfortunately, that awesome plant you grew is not so awesome. So again, make some good edibles still. Yeah, you can do something. It's not a total waste. But for enjoyability, get it right. It's not super hard. You just have to know the right things. Okay, so the next thing I always try to stress to people, anyone can grow successfully. You do not have to be an expert. You don't have to be a doctor, a scientist, whatever. Anyone at home, teachers, you'd be surprised how many of them we see. Um, Totally. Anyone can do it, like myself included. I didn't grow up with a history of plants and a background in all of this. Everything is self-taught. I've failed a lot. Hopefully, I can help you skip some of those mistakes. That's the idea. But it doesn't have to be super hard or expensive. This is one of my biggest pet peeves when I go online and I see things. Is there's a lot of people selling products overhyped. There's a lot of people saying only my thing is good, your thing is terrible. There's a lot of that. So the goal here is really just to get as many people doing this as we can. And ideally, I want you to do it well. For my own selfish reasons, when people bring me samples, I like when it's good. You know, that's always cool. Generally, the people I help bring me some pretty good weed. It's a give and take kind of thing. But my biggest point is do not be afraid to fail. It is something that is going to happen. It will happen. We're working with living things. It is so much harder than just inanimate objects. So don't beat yourself up too much. It is absolutely part of the process, and you're going to learn the most from it. I know it sounds cliche, but it feels a little different once you're actually involved in that process and you screw up a few times and still fix it and make it right. And then finally, ask for help, right? It's very hard when you first get into this stuff. Again, the internet is very overwhelming and kind of confusing sometimes. And there's a million different opinions, some of them great, some of them not so much. So try to find someone who you trust or you like and ask. I like to consider myself a decent resource, but obviously I'm biased. So take what I say, listen to what other people say, and kind of learn from all of that together. Now, my last little spiel, and this is to make you guys look at this now. On this QR code, I'm going to show you some of the stuff I have going. So, in the realm of helping, I'm going to show you guys the school community. And so the whole idea with that, again, is to help newer growers and to have a place for resources. So if you guys got the QR code, awesome. I'm going to throw it back up in just a minute or two. I'm going to show you what it is first. So when you pop open the QR, it's going to take you to this little link tree. On here, I have my Instagram. Check it out. You can DM me, ask me questions, whatever. And then I also have my school community. So on the school, it is a couple different sections. So when you first open it, when you click that link, it's going to just take you to the About section. Ignore this. This is just a landing page, whatever. But these are the two main ones, the community section and the classroom section. In community, you can go in here and ask me questions, make posts, show off your stuff. I have a couple people in here do already. Thank you guys. But come on here, ask me questions. I check these every single day. I generally answer within 24 hours. I'm trying to make that my rule. And it's collections from not just myself, but as well as other people. So this is always a good place to ask me things. And then the classroom. So this is a place where I put a little more of my energy and attention. So there's a bunch of different sections. The main two right now is the cannabis basics. If you guys are scared of growing weed, that's what that section's for, really. And then the beginner's cannabis. I'm going to change the name here, but this is basically an encyclopedia of information and resources for you. So if you go home and you're like, dang, what did Jake say? I don't really remember. You come in here and we have it separated. So here's your different topics. So today, obviously, we're talking about harvesting to the folks. I'm going to show this to you. I have a whole little section on harvesting. So anything you could need to know, we'll go over in here. It'll tell you. You can check at home. It's completely free. They have an app. Drying, curing, I have all kinds of stuff. In theory, I'm going to build this out to answer every single question you guys could ever have. But that's going to take a long time. So if you guys have questions, make sure you pop on there and tell me what they are. I do have a few others. This is non-cannabis related, but I have a planting calendar for like veggies here in Arizona. So if you guys are into that, I got to do the December one. I'm going to do that tomorrow. But November, follow it. It's pretty much the same thing. And that's for normal stuff, non-cannabis stuff. So over time, I'm going to have these all filled out. But yeah, if you guys think I do a good job or if you have questions, check it out. Go on there, ask me some stuff. And then, of course, always the Instagram too. I'll throw this little QR code up for anyone who's interested again. Should scan it and it'll take you to either one. I'll let you get that. But really, that's what I have for you guys today. So I'm going to go open the floor to questions for people. But before I do that, I'm going to let you get the last QR code scans. I have two more things to give away. So I want one piece of negative feedback, something that was not clear for the class or that you're still confused on. Anybody have one? I'm giving stuff. I know it's the only time you can be mean. Go ahead. No, couldn't. So, tell me, what is it? Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. I all I could say is like the biggest terms that come to mind is oxidation, but this is a different one. That's more with other things going on. Yeah, I couldn't tell you, man. Couldn't tell you. Yeah, yeah, I couldn't tell you why. But if you find out, tell me, and I'll say it next class. I'll still give you one for that. That counts. Do you mind repeating the question, and I'll repeat it here too. Gotcha. So, what is the compound that makes weed taste bad, and why we should relate it to the light, and why we should dry in the dark? Yeah, I couldn't tell you, man. Couldn't tell you. Um, okay. Yeah, but a little different. Yeah. So my guess, I don't know what I'm talking about, would be like you said, UV light degrading things. Again, I said oxidation a few different times. That's kind of just my generic answer for it. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good one. I saw your hand too. I don't necessarily have something to give you, but let's hear it. Did not. I didn't do anything harvesting this class. I did just dry and cure. Um, that's okay. It's part of it, honestly. Basically, you harvest and then you dry and cure. Yeah. Flushing, just a quick rundown on it. Most people generally recommend about a week before you harvest to just do a plain water flush and not feed your plants. There's different opinions on it, actually. I generally recommend it if you're using any salt-based, like liquid fertilizers. But if you're using all organics, I don't do it. I would just don't think you need to really. Mm. So, and I think if I remember your guys' setup, I think you just have like the down to earth boxes and stuff like that, the little fertilizer boxes and big pots. Simpro. Yeah, so that's a great one. I would recommend flushing the last week if you can. Um, yeah. Okay. And then I forgot I had one other thing I was supposed to ask. Anybody have questions too? I have one more thing to give away as well. So let's see. Let's hear one piece of positive feedback. What's one thing you liked and thought was good? Nothing, huh? No, I'm giving a pack of seeds for it, man. You can say whatever. Cool. That'll work. So maybe we'll catch you at the next one too, you know? And I did see you had a question in the back, it looked like. Hmm. Sure, like more sedative. The biggest thing is genetics, honestly, first and foremost. Second, like we talked about. Oh, I keep forgetting, man. I'm sorry. He asked, how can you make your weed heavier, more sedative, stuff like that. A lot of people are after it. Biggest one is genetics. A super rough rule of thumb is like your indicas are heavier. It's not necessarily the rule, honestly. But genetics is the biggest by far. Number two is we talked a little bit about like your THC converting and your harvest timing and stuff. You can harvest a little later, generally when you have more of that CBN, which is a little heavier. So genetics first and foremost, and like harvest timing, we'll say. But really just focus on strains that you know are going to give you some of those effects. And if you don't know what they are, come and ask us, and I'll point you towards some that I know I like. Any other questions from you guys? Mhm. Yeah, harvesting. Correct. Great question. So clear is immature. It's not done yet. There's still more juice to squeeze. Cloudy is generally speaking the point where it's like considered to have everything in it. And amber is actually almost a little bit like post ripe, overripe, but I still like a little bit of it on there. So I harvested about 10% amber or so. Yes, to an extent, right. So it gets better as it ripens. You want to harvest at peak ripeness, but if you go past peak ripeness, you can lose a little bit. A little less significant with cannabis, but it's still there. And then I'll point out on the school on the harvesting section, I think I have pictures of this here. I should. I go over pretty much whatever. So when you guys are looking at your plant, this is kind of what you're going to see under the lens. It looks like a little alien, little stalks and little balls on it. We're trying to check just inside the head of the trichomes. And so that is all those little guys up there, little balls on top. And so for this plant, you can see there's a couple clear. It's never going to be totally uniform. We're working with a living thing. Most of these are pretty cloudy. I would say this is a pretty acceptable point, and you can even see just, one or two amber here and there. For my personal preferences, would go just a tiny bit longer, but this is acceptable. This is fine. Um, kind of. When they're clear, they're going to be less potent. When they have that milkiness in there, that's like the peak ripeness kind of. They will be more potent. You will have more cannabinoids. And then once you go to this point, that THC starts converting into other compounds. And so, like, I would argue it's not necessarily like a loss of potency, but it is a change. It is a change. Um, kinda. Yeah, you'll get a wider range of effects. Again, I'm biased. I like a little amber. Some people do not. But yeah, more than welcome to check on here if you guys have questions on the harvesting. I will do a class on it, and that actually it's a good segue into my next point. This is what I meant to give away the last one for. You guys have any class suggestions? You don't mind? No, I don't want to take yours from you. I'll get you in. Oh wait, hold on. I have an extra bag here. Thank you. I'll take care of you after. If not, let's see. But class suggestions. So we did the last one. We did drying and curing today because of this. Does anybody have good suggestions? Hmm. Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah. And it's honestly, it's a class on its own. I've put in like one slide in presentations before, but it's hard to do it justice. And maybe that's a good one. Maybe I'll go over like my thought process and how I troubleshoot. Would you guys be interested in like a Q&A class? Is that cool? Is that something? Can I get show of hands if you guys would show up to Q&A with Jake? All right, that's pretty good. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I'll see if I can do that. I don't know what I'll call it yet. Either Q&A and troubleshooting. I might just do both of them together or something. But I saw you at the back, and I saw you too. Oh, my bad. Good for you. Oh, the samples. Talk to us after. You can buy some. We're doing that in March. March class is going to be Cannabis 101, Cannabis Basics. So everyone here, I assume, kind of somewhat knows that come anyways, but brand new, totally, for sure. Yeah. Her question was, when are we doing like a basic class? 101, bare roots, I know nothing. March. March, we're going to go over the basics of growing mostly, but I will have a handful of slides of just like, what is weed? Like some of the basics of that. Right, right. So actually, I should mention in the totally. If you go to the school class on there in the cannabis basics, that's kind of the idea is to show you some of the bare bones stuff. I still have to refine it, so tell me what you think is clear and what's not. But we will be doing that. That's a great one. Awesome. Yeah, totally. So should I repeat the question, or I guess it's in chat? So the question was, do you notice a difference in variability of curing time with different cultivars? And so for those who don't know, cultivars is it's strains basically, like different strains. Um, yes, 100%. I've seen differences on stuff. Certain things will take a lot longer, or I think are at their peak later on, versus others are at their peak sooner. My hypothesis for this is like actually the magic of your secondary compounds, and so all your little secondary metabolites in there. Cannabis from cultivar to cultivar, strain to strain, is totally different and can have completely different compounds. Obviously, they have the THC, but you'll have different levels of all kinds of cannabinoids. And so I think that's what's responsible for the differences in curing time, stuff like that. And it's also part of the fun. This is why the old heads who have grown the same clone for 25 years are super dialed in and know that plant to a T versus someone who, I'm popping new seeds every week or something like that. Great question, though. Mhm. Yeah, totally. So, question was indoors versus outdoor growing. Are there specific strains that we recommend? Yes. As a super rough rule of thumb, your sativas generally do better out here because they can handle the heat a little bit better. But it is very much strain dependent. And so, if you come and talk to us in store, there's actually two breeders we carry in particular where their whole shtick is desert adapted outdoor plants for Arizona. And so for us, our main challenges are the really high heat in the summertime, as well as our monsoons. It brings a ton of rain, kind of right when your plants are flowering. And so those are two very different challenges. And so genetics 100% play a part in that. That being said, I still encourage people to grow what you like first and foremost. And then we'll kind of go from there and see how you can set things up. You can successfully grow pretty much anything in most places of the world with the right care, but some will be easier than others. I thought you had one a long time ago too. Thank you. Yeah, above my pay grade. Oh, he wanted to see a class on breeding. We totally will, and we should have one. I am not a breeder, so I would be. I could tell you some stuff, but it's not the same as someone who's done this for 20 years or whatever, you know. So I am in talks with some really cool people of trying to get some cool classes put on. I will totally keep that in mind. Is anyone else interested in a breeding class? Plans for it? Breeding is in making your own cannabis genetics. So taking plants that you have and crossing them, breeding them together to make seeds and make your own and stuff like that. I could definitely do like a breeding basics class pretty comfortably, but if you want like the deep secret sauce, that one I would refer to someone else. Part of it for sure. Part of it for sure. Yeah. Which again sounds crazy if you come from the day of, brickweed in a bag, but it's different. You can have some unique stuff on there, you know? And then just for show of hands, how many of you guys will want a basics breeding class? Okay, cool. And how many of you guys would be interested in like super sauce, in-depth, like breeder class? I know there'll be less for this one, but okay, cool, cool. Yeah, we'll try to make that happen. That's a good one. Yeah. Doesn't click the same. Yeah, I get that. I get that. Totally. That's a good point. Right. Yeah. Beautiful suggestion, 100%. I'm going to try to make that happen. So the suggestion was basically to try to do, besides just a slideshow, maybe a quick basic one, but to have some hands-on like information, visuals, stuff like that. We will do that. I'm going to talk to the boss and try to make that happen. Fantastic idea. Because you're right. Everybody thinks you need like a big room or a mansion to grow weed. It's like, dude, if you have this corner, you can grow like a lot of weed out of it. It's pretty ridiculous. Fantastic suggestion. Thank you. I'm gonna get you a freebie in store for that if I find you still. But any other last minute questions, class suggestions, anything like that? More from you? Yeah. That would be a good one. So his suggestion was like a nutrients or like a fertilizer class. That's a great one too. I've thought about that a lot. I just struggle with how in depth to go. Like, do people really want to know, the macro and micronutrients and what each one does, or we just want like a basics, understanding of stuff? And so, show of hands, would you guys come to let's say, a basics fertilizing class? That's pretty good. Awesome. Would you guys go to a super sauce in-depth fertilizer class? Pretty great too. Okay, so if the want is there, we'll do it. It's better to have people show up. Otherwise, I'm talking to myself, which I'll still do, but it's more fun when we can do this back and forth. Great suggestion too. Great suggestion. We'll go back there first. Totally. Yeah. For sure. Some specifics and things. Yeah. Probably can't do a whole class on that one, but talk to us about it because, like, obviously, we run a store, we sell stuff, we want you to buy our stuff, but we're not we're not so like only use our things. Everyone else is terrible. If we think someone else is going to do better for you, we're happy to tell you that. And I've had a couple instances of that this week, actually. I would say talk in store first and foremost. Is there anything like off the top of your head you're looking for? Yeah, for sure. Stand, go to like the gravel lots nearby would be my biggest suggestion for that because it's cheap. Like we sell sand in store, but it's a quart bag for a lot. We just have it for like the couple people who want it in their terrariums. If you need a lot of it, go to like the gravel yards or something like that. Mm, yeah. Another hand. There you go. I think is this live too? I think we're doing both, I believe. Correct. Yeah. Oh, dude. Yeah. Any cannabis people. Totally, totally. Yeah, so I do want to give a shout out. Thank you for coming by, setting this up. It is being live streamed to the FCP channel. It's going to be on the channel. If you guys are on the school, I'm going to put a little link on there so you can click it and you can find the recorded class. Eventually, I'm going to do that for every single class. I'm going to have a nice little library so you guys can go back on it. And then even more in the future, I'm going to have a video for each topic on the school classroom. And so rather than just reading, that's kind of just the baseline for me to get the information there. I know it's not the most digestible for people. I know videos are better, frankly. So that will happen, but that's a pretty far one. The FCP stuff will be happening right away, though. Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, right. Yeah, difference of opinions and stuff too. Yeah, that would be cool. So, oh, there's one guy in particular who's trying to do a class for us, and his again desert adapted, land racy kind of stuff. So he would be a cool one to be down here. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a great suggestion too. We'll try to make that happen. The logistics is a little harder, but I think I can do it. It's like making people show up, you know. Great suggestions. Great suggestion. Sitting around and talk. I thought of like this is I'm not doing this now, but I thought of doing like a little like Sunday sesh thing where it's like we meet I don't know once a month after the store and hang out in this little Q&A or something. But you know, again, we're seeing interest and stuff like that. But yeah, you guys are you can feel free to leave too. I don't want to hold you hostage. But if you guys have questions, I'll keep going. Anybody? Another one at the back. Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So her question was, is it okay to grow different types of plants, cannabis, veggies, otherwise? Oh, I forgot. Everybody come get a coupon before you head out. So save yourself some money if you guys buy some this week. I'm gonna leave them just on the edge of the table, but come and grab them as you guys go. The question was, can I grow cannabis and other plants, crops, whatever? Absolutely. And I encourage it actually. Um, Oh, I see. Yeah. So let's say different strains and autos and photos, all of that is totally fine. Male and female we avoid if you don't want seeds, but you can grow as many as you want, put them all together. Now, indoors, the challenge with it, they're going to grow differently. Some are way taller, some are shorter, things like that. Thank you for passing them out. Um, so indoors, it's really about trying to maintain an even canopy. Outdoors, let it ride, grow what you want. Indoors, try to at least find plants that are similar or trim them so they're at a similar height. But you can absolutely do that. Question from you in the back. Oh yeah, don't do that. So that's a bad answer. His question was, what happens if your plant overgrows the tent? This will happen. This happens to almost everybody early on. The best answer is like prevent it. Don't let it overgrow the tent. Honestly, that's the crappy answer. But try to trim it before you flip. So really, the biggest mistake people make is when you flip to flower, your plant's going to roughly double in size, sometimes even more than that. Triple. I've had plants like almost quadruple. It's very rare, but it can happen. And so oftentimes newer people, they grow this big monster plant, they get it huge, and they're like, awesome, let's fill it with flower. And then they flip it to flower, and then it's like you have nowhere to go. So the best answer is flower it before it's too tall. Second to that, what you can do is you can trim your plant. So before you go into flower, if you know it's something that's going to get kind of tall, I recommend topping it. Just kind of cut the top of it, slow it down in some way, so that way it doesn't overgrow the tent. If you're at the point where your plant is flowering and it's hitting the lights, not a ton you can do, honestly, besides try to move it away. You can do some training, you can super crop and you can bend your plants away from it. There are still methods for it, but really we're just trying to get it away from the light a little bit. I have seen some people go in and cut it and sacrifice the top cola to keep the rest of them looking nice. It sucks when that happens, but there are options for it. Oh yeah, great. Hmm. So that's a perfect one. I highly recommend going to that. Training is like a pretty big class too. There's a lot you can do with that. That's another suggestion for like topic. Mhm. All kinds of stuff. Yeah, yeah. And there's a million methods out there too. It's pretty hard to cover them all. Oh no. So I mean, it sounds crazy, but at scale, that like might be the best option. So there's all kinds of methods, man. That's crazy though. Well, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I think so, yeah. Max. Totally. Yeah, and Max has great classes in particular. He does the terrariums, carnivorous plants. He does like some of the oddball ones if it's like a specific type of plant. Yeah, totally, totally. Like he did a Bursera class recently, which is like little bonsai trees, kind of. All kinds of cool stuff. He's a good one to talk to as well if you're interested. So we're supposed to have a list printed out at the front of the store, and we will. We've just been slow from the new year and didn't do it yet. But Instagram, as well as if you go to our website, you can sign up for our newsletter. Very short. It's not annoying. We only send it like once a week or something, and it's going to show you the classes, who's teaching them, as well as discounts, events, whatever. So newsletter, Instagram is the best, or in person. Any questions? Anybody? Looking pretty good. Thank you guys for your time too. I know we've been here for a little while. Especially appreciate y'all. And the stragglers for sticking around. Honestly, that always feels good. I never know if I'm rambling or if people are interested. So thank you. Yeah, I always have a lot of fun doing these. So I extra fun when I have people come out. So yeah, really thank you guys. Cool. Everyone's free to leave. Again, take a coupon if you haven't already. If you guys have questions for me, you want to show me pictures, whatever, I'm open to that. And then also go in store, check stuff out, whatever. That's all cool. Oh yeah, what weird. Picture, check that. Sorry for a